Stand by. You're listening to the Naively Optimistic podcast with your hosts, Iano and Gary.
The ego is saying, what's happening here?
It's an opportunity for spiritual growth.
Do you still think the royal family were shape-shifting lizards? Yes, I do.
Give it up for the lads too fucking shy talking spaz. Run amok, bit as fuck on down all your dads. Burning ears off for that cheese, bring all Dublin down to its knees. This podcast fucking shy, tell me where else would you be? So sit back, like relax, have a drink, lose the cax, and take in all the cack that comes out of these scaldy rats. Us!
What is going on, lads? How are we? Hope you're all having a fantastic week thus far. Another day in paradise, what? AKA level 5. But look, halfway there now, lads. Hopefully we can put this all behind us and have a decent little crimbo. But on to business, however. We are back with episode 33, AKA the most challenging number to say as an Irish person. I think we can all agree, 33. But yes, we're back. And massive apologies for the delay with this episode. Please forgive me. It's been a bit hard to record the old podcast with the restrictions, but look, you can't keep a good thing down, and such is the case with NOP, so we're back. There's going to be a second episode as well coming relatively quick this week, so a cheeky doubler for you all. So, I'm joined this week by Iano. Many of you will have already heard Iano over on the Patreon with me. He joins me for the exclusive spin-off shows over on Patreon, including the infamous Naively Pessimistic, which, as you can probably guess, is our little sister show over there where we knock back a few blue wickets and talk unfiltered madness about a myriad of hilarious and mad subjects. Definitely worth checking out if you're a fan of the show and would like more content even, or even just to support the lads. And as always, we absolutely appreciate it from the bottom of our hearts. In this episode, however, myself and Iano dive into all things MH370, the missing Malaysian airplane which disappeared off the face of the earth back in 2014. We have a look at the official story before lashing into all of the crazy alternate theories surrounding this bizarre event. However, before we kick off into this episode, I want to give a shout out to our official sponsor of the podcast, and they are Martina's Kitchen. If you're like me and potentially struggle with the nutrition side of training, I would highly recommend giving Martina's Kitchen a look. They have been doing bits for me the last couple of months, helping me shed the last of that lockdown blubber. Like many of us, I went a bit bananas on the old meanies and banshee bones over the lockdown and absolutely blew up. But Martina has managed to tame this beast just about and save me from myself. So Martina's Kitchen, in short, is a meal delivery service here in Dublin. They prepare and deliver all of your meals for the working week, all for a tidy number of €60. They're practically giving it away. But 3 meals a day for 5 days a week, and the menu changes every week, and it's honestly divine. All high protein rich delicious meals that will help keep you on track with your fat loss / muscle building journey. But don't take my word for it, head on over to Instagram and check the lads out at Martina's Kitchen Meals and have a little flick through there, have a look at the pictures and some of the feedback from some of the customers, and if it's for you, daily get in touch with them and give them a go. I'm delighted anyway that I started with them, so a big massive thank you to Martina, and of course the great Jerry for helping me go from flab to fab the last couple of months. But yes, on to brass tacks. Episode 33 with young Master Reno is upon us. Enjoy, lads, and I'll see you on the next one, alright?
Des and Troy.
Do you remember everyone used to do that back in the day, Dan and Jer?
Yeah, I know.
You'd
And you didn't know.
yeah.
You're like, yeah, Susie and Jess.
Yeah.
Like, what? What are you on about?
Mate, I completely forgot about that.
The gas thing is, you weren't actually trying to be like 180 degree funny. You were actually just like, why are we just throwing random people's names in? I'll just throw two.
When I said to you, I was like, you know yourself, I was actually such a fucking mongo back in the day. Like, so when everyone goes, let me introduce it to me two pals, Dan and Jer, and be flexing, I'd be like, yeah, Fakrit and Ronan. Yeah. And they'd be like, Fearon, what?
Oh, stop.
The whole thing obviously is Dan and Jer for the other spanners out there that didn't understand that.
Oh, stop.
But come
I
here.
love you know, Taika Waititi's Thor Ragnarok.
Oh yeah, man.
You said that to me years ago. Watched that years ago.
Yeah.
It took me years later to watch it. Sat down and watched it, and I really enjoyed it. But it's just one of them. It was just such a like just a change of direction. It was really enjoyable.
100%.
But I love that character he had, like, the English bloke. And he's like, let me introduce you to my friends. And he has like 2 guns, like Diz and Troy.
The best character in that is your man, the rock fella. Do you remember the mad New Zealand accent?
That is him.
Piss
That's
off
the
Gorst.
director.
Remember that? Piss off Gorst.
Yeah.
Do you remember how he came up with the voice for that?
The Bouncers.
Yeah. He's from New Zealand or something, is he?
What was that again?
Because like in
It's
the
been a
film, if
while.
anyone's seen Thor Ragnarok, there's like this big, huge rock cunt in it, right? And he's like this stocky animal. His name is like Korg or something like that,
Korg,
right?
yeah.
And but he has this really like, you
He's
know,
so polite,
like
yeah.
so polite, and he's like, can everyone put away their weapons when they're finished? Do you mean?
Yeah, he's like,
and he's,
oh my god, the hammer pulled you off.
yeah, oh my god, the hammer pulled you off. Right, and then our mum was asked about it in like an interview. It's like, where'd you come up with the voice? And he's like, in New Zealand, there's like these big Kiwi bouncers that are the biggest cunts ever, but they have like really harmless, like innocent, soft-spoken voices. And I was like, not tonight, my friend. Like when they're rejecting people at the door, I suggest you go off for a coffee, come back in a while, and we'll see how you are. Do you mean?
Mate, your accents are stellar.
Do you think
Honest
so?
to God, man. Jesus. Years ago, you weren't even like that. I remember you used to throw on accents and be like, fair play. Just
Yeah,
give it a go.
that Mongolia, is it? No, Galway, man.
Galway accent, huh?
Like, honestly, I don't know. Like, me and Anthony Mouse, you know, you obviously know who the real Anthony Mouse is, yeah? We literally just do accents all day in work, and we've just perfected them. But I always mess saying I'm the master of, like, one-word impressions, like, you know what I
I
mean?
know who he tries all day.
Who?
Jack Sparrow.
No. He actually, man, Anthony Mouse is a dark horse, man. Anthony Mouse is, like, can do so many accents, it's not even funny. He puts me to shame. But, like, actually, did I ever tell you about, in our old office, actually just popping into my head, You're one, the Australian board, no?
No,
Who like
never.
went mad at me, right? This is actually mad, right? We used to rent this office in town, right? And there was only like there was one Jack's on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Like it was kind of like it was a big like kind of what do you call them, kind of old style like Georgian buildings, I guess, like you know what I mean?
Yes.
And like four like levels on it, right? But downstairs there was like 2 males Jackses and 1 female Jacks, as it should be, right? And no one ever used the female Jacks, right? But the female Jacks had this like full mirror in it and all, right? It was just way better than the bloke Jacks, and I'd always use that because like. You know what I mean? Why not? Like, because the bloke Jacks were
Transgender
shy.
and all,
Exactly.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I can use whatever Jacks I like in
Gender
that case. Do you know what I mean?
identification, yeah.
And so I was walking into the female Jacks, and there was this Australian board who was like burrowed down in the basement, like, do you know what I mean? I don't know what she did. I think she had some like bike company or something like that, right? And so I was walking into Jacks, and bear in mind, I used the female Jacks 1,000 times before this without anyone saying anything, because there was no one ever on the ground floor. It was just one of them empty buildings. So I'm walking into the Jacks, and all, you know, all I hear is this voice, and I swear to God, it sounded like the seagulls out flying in the air. She goes, "Oi, mate!"
Oh,
and I look behind me, I goes, "What?" I goes, "I think that's the ladies." I'm like, what the fuck? And Anthony Mouse was like in the kitchen, which is near the Jacks, and he comes bursting out as well, laughing his head off, going, "What's going on? This Australian board is accosting guys, like, you know what I mean?" And she literally like rear ends. She goes, "I think that's the ladies, mate." She actually sounded
God.
exactly like the seagulls, mate, out of Finding Nemo. Do you know them? Oi. Like, we were actually in stitches laughing, and he kept doing that for months on end. I think that's the ladies, mate. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, it was just such a bizarre
Hey,
situation.
honest to God, you could leave you in a 40-acre field and come back an hour later, you'd still have a story.
Oh,
Honest to
honestly,
God.
mate, it's
Every
true.
time I talk to you, you've something going on.
Man, speaking of stories, we had some laugh on the Patreon, didn't we? You enjoyed it, didn't you?
Mate, it was fantastic to be podding with you.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, it's not the same now that I'm on Spotify level.
Oh,
When I came
mate,
into
don't
Patreon
give
level,
out that, bro.
there was people introduced me. There was a lad in the Jacks doing aftershave. There was wine and cheese being served.
Yeah, it's a different story down here
Now,
for the peasants, isn't
to
it?
park my own car, to wait outside the cold, to open the door. What's going on here? Like,
I know, mate. It's actually a shocking service, isn't
But I'm
it?
always
Look,
happy
this
to
is
be
the
podding.
freemium,
Freemium,
isn't it?
yeah,
But
exactly.
mate, actually, we had a large crack on the Patreon. Like that was like we had it. Like, you know, we anticipated to do an hour episode.
The
on Princess.
intoxication was balanced. I
Yeah,
will say that. I
yeah.
wasn't too far gone.
Like, we mean into the naively pessimistic. So, anyone that doesn't know, that's our little spin-off show on Patreon where we have a few beveraginos. Things get a bit
cans
loose.
of lilt.
Yeah, it's killing the sperm, man. Do you remember that? Lilt, taking out your sperm
yeah.
one by one. I could do with it.
Isn't it mad how lilt just went out of the market and no one knows why?
Do you reckon that done them in, like PR wise?
Unless it was actually true, and they're like, stop, like
It
stop
can't
sterilizing the nation, like take them off the
actually
shelf.
can't
Like,
be true though, mate. There's no way Lil does your experiment, you know what I mean? But on to brass tacks, mate. What are we discussing today? We're talking all things MH370, mate.
yeah.
And you know, I held a little comp, didn't I, during the week on Instagram? And a few of the fans, I left a cryptic emoji sequence to try see if anyone would actually guess what it was. And fair play to you, a lot of you guessed it right. Do you know, it was actually the easiest thing ever to guess. The Malaysian flag, a plane emoji, plummeting into the ocean, yeah?
There was a rent boy
Yeah.
from Malaysia on a plane getting waterboarded over a random location.
Do you know, right? I think I was saying this. I start messing with a few people over DM, so it's like so obvious it's a Malaysian flag, the plane, blah blah blah, and people will be writing back going, "Oh, MH370, like the plane from Malaysia." And I goes, "What? Like, no, the moon landing. Where'd you get that?" Yeah, they were like, there's people that were retaliating, going, "It's clearly an ocean emoji. How is that the moon?" And I'm like, right, relax, man. I'm only buzzing with you, for fuck's sake. No, but in all seriousness, though, a few. I'm gonna give a shout out to Jesus. A good few has actually reached out with this, right? So from the top, right, Ben Mulligan, Warren Shelley, Stewie McMillan, Shane Harder, all Patreons, coincidentally. So fair play.
Tip of the hat to you, lads.
Tip of the hat, boys.
Lads and lads.
Absolutely. They were actually all lads. Lads.
Genuinely, I skipped out there for a moment, so I was like, he might have said Mott's names, and then I missed that. The boys going, what the fuck is he at?
Who's aboard? Sorry, face.
LGBTQ ABCD 1 2 3 4. I have to cover all the bases. You know?
Andrew Finnegan, Jamie Place, Carol Devaney, Maeve McElree, Rion Cahill, Leon McGrain, and Philippe Cantley. So well done, boys.
All
fair
lads.
play to you. You've evaded me attempt to shit us up at the moon landing, but fair play to you for guessing that right. So actually, funny enough, before we even touch off the MH370 situation, do you remember, man, when I told you about that thing about about making the shot? Remember me and the lads were out in town. This is when all this was going down in 2014 when the plane went missing initially, right? Me and some of the lads were out in town.
I have a 20% memory here. Keep going.
We were in a pub at a lock-in, right? And we used to get on well with the barmaid, right? And she was like, "Oh, what can I get you, lad?" And we actually made up a drink on the spot, right? With all the hype going on, we were like, "Yeah, give us a shot there of MH370." She was like, "What? Like the plane?" And I goes, "Yeah, MH370. I'm not a part of that. I'm not gonna repeat myself." She was like, "What's that?" Sambuca, a blue wicked, right? Silver on the bottom, blue on top. So me and the lads, we've literally coined our own little shot there, MH370. So if anyone's floating around the Eden Quay area of town, pop into some of the establishments around there, I'm sure they would have heard of the famed MH370 shot made famous by the lads. But mate, where do we even fucking begin with this? Jesus Christ, MH370, the Harry Houdini of aviation, as we were joking about earlier. Fair play to Warren, who was actually the last co-host that I need to debut to the lads. He'll be on hopefully next.
I just want to go out on record and say I don't think Warren exists.
Yeah.
So if Warren, quote unquote, real person, here's this. Make yourself be known.
Mate, imagine like I debut Warren and it's just like one of those little scrambler effects or something like that. "What's up, Warren? Pleasure to have you. Pleasure to be here, Gary."
Doing ya.
Like getting like deep fake, do you know what I mean? Like a deep fake voice to play Warren. But I was only chatting to Warren earlier. He was actually telling me this is actually a situation close to your heart, mate. Apparently the Viking splash has gone into liquidation.
That happened a long time ago.
Did it?
Yeah.
I feel like there's a pun there actually. Sorry, liquidation. Liquid.
We can do a re-recording if you want. You can come back tomorrow.
But that's mad, man. That's devastating. As you know, myself and myself, loads of Viking splash. We've never actually. Have you been on it?
No. But I love that you're laughing because you just know what the story I want to say. Like, I didn't want to tell the story, but guys, like, just give me that death stare. Like, you're telling the story here. Someone, an associate of mine was actually a driver / sailor.
Sailor, mate. Can you elaborate on what that role entails?
And he done quite well. He loved it, and it's actually quite an esteemed role. Yeah.
Is the driver and sailor the same role, or is it two different roles? Role, yeah. Sorry, when you said that, like, I don't know why when you said driver and sailor, right? I was just like, what? Do they actually jump off sometimes? And
change costume just as they're going down the ramp.
Like, yeah. Does he go by different definitions depending on what phase they are through the whole thing? Do you mean
to
like
show
when they're
different
on the
licenses.
road, you can call me the driver. When they
Yeah.
get into the liffey, it's like I don't go by that term anymore. I'm actually the sailor. If you want me, call me the sailor.
Well, I'll tell you, yeah, said person was actually quite.
He loved it.
Yeah, he loved it, but
Yeah.
he was so up on Irish history
You'd
that
need
like
to be,
no,
wouldn't you?
if you're standing on any road in the city, he can tell you a mad story from 100 years ago, and he'd tell you an interesting story, not a boring fact. You know? So he was great at it, and he was telling like the Americans and whatever they come over, they ate it up, they loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, not particularly the Americans, but you know what I'm saying, like the North American.
Is it gone though for definite, the Viking Splash?
I don't know, but I would guess so.
Because I'm devastated. Because me and Stephen obviously co-host one, and his board were only chatting about it there a while ago. We wanted to go on the Viking Splash and get absolutely plastered, but put on different accents.
That was one of my life goals for years, and I never done
Yeah,
it.
but we wanted to go on it and do different accents. Like, so I would have played in Australian probably. Do you know what I mean? Based on earlier's. And Stephen, I don't think Stephen's great at accents. He probably just throw an American one or something like. But I'd love to like just impersonate various different nationalities on the Viking Splash and just get absolutely fluent.
They changed the rules. It was got to do with law changes on the road. That the driver used to be the tour guide.
You're messing.
And they said that can't happen anymore. So that broke me.
Oh, so they brought another person.
Heart. And he was like, "Fuck this, I'm over here."
So they have to bring on like another person to act as the tour guide.
And
That's
guess what was
bollocks.
happening? He was saying that the tips are magnificent. The tips are better than the wages. What happened was the tips were getting 50-50. He's like, bollocks to this.
That's shy,
He's
innit?
like, oh, man, out of here.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it.
That's
that was
mad,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Outrageous, mate. Out fucking rageous.
Now we sell him.
But we actually know who Ian's talking about. It's actually outrageous, Graham.
So he couldn't be more wrong.
Oh, stop. But look, on to our pal MH370, mate. So look, when did this all go down? Pardon the
When
pun.
did it go? Oh my God, man.
March 8th, 2014, mate. Where were you?
2014.
Where were you when this all went down? That's what I want to know.
They were taxiing out just before midnight, March 7th. Mate, that's not one of them things you actually remember. Is it you? For you?
No,
it wasn't that
I don't
quite,
remember, man.
Like, it is quite a huge thing. It's always resonated with me, and it always will. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if someone just says MH, I'll know. But it's not one of them things where I remember where I was. You know what I mean?
I haven't a fucking clue where I was when MH370 happened, to be honest
Probably
with you.
fast asleep.
Yeah, probably, because beyond Malaysian timeline, I suppose, like, so.
That's the time, yeah.
But yeah,
But this
so,
is a topic that has actually recirculated in our chats over the years, actually. And I know people think, like, I don't know if, like, I just want to preface with, because people always say conspiracy, and I'm not conspiracy hoot, you get me? Like, I'm not just someone who chases after conspiracy, but, like, there's a difference between a hypothesis and a conspiracy.
Yeah.
Conspiracy is just this, like, I think mainstream media has just always believed that if you hear the word conspiracy, lads, run a million miles and just take it as 0.001% true. But it's really not like that. I mean, what we'll present here, like, are like kind of like four quite substantial and reasonable explanations or hypotheses with evidence kind of supporting.
100%, couldn't agree more, like, because we were looking into
No,
obviously.
if I'm speaking well here or not.
No, you're
just
talking,
keep it flowing.
talking facts, bro.
Am I, bro?
But no, even
Cheers,
like
man.
we've been obviously been looking at this over the last couple of weeks, and I, outside of the brass tacks, like, I didn't know too much about 370, but after reading into it, I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is like the 9/11 shit all over again, just riddled with just oddities and just bizarre shit. Like, if it was as straightforward as a missing plane, like plunging into the ocean, surely it'd be as straightforward as that. But as we're gonna go through, it's not
the
as per
greatest
usual.
aviation mystery of all
Ever,
time.
do you know what I mean? And
Ever.
yeah, it's absolutely bananas. But just to give you, I suppose, a quick timeline of events. So she was traveling from where to where, you know?
Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia to Beijing, China. A flight that usually takes 5 hours and 34 minutes. And it was March 8th. It was the midnight between going from March 7th to March 8th. And they took off around 12:30 at night into the March 8th. And yeah, mild, low wind, like lovely night to fly.
Conditions were perfect, weren't they?
Perfect, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like everything was all G
prefacing with that,
for the most part. Product placement.
Product, going back on
Every
this
time I
again.
say that, every time I say everything is all G, Eno goes, that product placement, man, for you, like.
Yeah, because Gary even refers to himself as G. So yeah, I think everyone refers to Gary as G. But anyway.
Yeah, the close circle. But yeah, no, less than an hour into her voyage, things started to go a bit wayward. About an hour in, 370 was expected to enter into Vietnamese airspace, but she never did. There was supposed to be a bit of a handover going down. Now, what exactly is a handover, young Eno?
Handover. So air traffic control. So when you're in certain airspace, you're in constant communication with the air traffic control. So after about an hour, they're meant to enter into Vietnamese airspace, and they say goodbye. In fact, the last words ever heard from anyone on that plane, which was the pilot, which was
Slangafauser.
Good night. Schlangefoil. Was good night from Malaysia 370.
That's fucking outrageous, mate.
And they entered into Vietnamese airspace 6 seconds in those 6 seconds it takes to change over from one air traffic controller to another. They call that a black spot.
Right.
And that's the only time, those 6 seconds, where a plane is flying alone. There's no other time.
6 seconds as well, like, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
So brief, like. But,
6 seconds.
sorry, yeah, go on.
But it'll always be picked up by the next air traffic control. But it wasn't. So the Vietnamese air traffic control realised this straight away, but said, no problem. The problem must be on their end. They'll try fixing. And after 2 minutes went by, the Vietnamese tried to make contact. There was nothing coming back. And I think it was after 6 minutes then they made a turn. So the Vietnamese air traffic control thought, oh, they're going back into Malaysia Airways. This is their problem. The Malaysia air traffic control picked this up. Similarly, I think this is where the problem started, was the Malaysia air traffic control that thought that, well, they're in Vietnamese airspace, they'll pick this up. It was pretty soon after that, after those 6 minutes then, that the plane goes offline. So there's 3 forms of communication that a plane has. One is air traffic control. The second one is transponder, which is obviously known as the black box. So it sends out a short range and a low range frequency. Third is ACARS, which is Aircraft Communication Addressing Reporting System. And that's something that's sent to Boeing, and Boeing sent it back to the airliner. And what that is they record all the details: altitude, speed, temperature, oxygen, all the controls, everything that's being used inside and around the aircraft. All those 3 went offline.
That's fucked, man, innit?
Yeah, all those 3 went offline. Now, just to kind of give you some understanding here, it's nearly impossible to knock all 3 offline. So the ACARS, which we talked about, the Aircraft Communication Addressing Reporting System, the Boeing system, there's 2 boxes there that have to be turned off. One is in the main cabin where the passengers are. The other one is inside the cockpit. The transponder, the black box, that's inside the cockpit. Those 2 can be disconnected with a circuit breaker, but that will take a few minutes, and that only should ever happen. By the way, it's almost a
last resort, like
last resort
much, like,
to stop a fire. So if there's a fire occurring because of an electrical fault, then the pilot has the authority to remove the circuit breaker.
Whip that out there.
Whip that.
Oh, stop.
Who knows? Maybe they wanted a fag inside the cockpit.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Joint. Sparking up a big joint in the cockers.
But to lose those plus the air traffic control signal.
Yeah, it's stupidly rare. Like,
was strange.
Yeah.
Now there is a 4th way, but it is an unofficial way, which is called, the handshake.
Go on.
The handshake. So the handshake is what's known as where an aircraft, or even anything on the ground, sends a frequency and a signal about its own data up to a satellite, and the satellite picks that up and sends it back to its respective station. So in this case, there was a satellite that was picking up their information once an hour, and that's called a handshake. So it's where the satellite sends its information to the aircraft, and vice versa. And what happened was, there was the space station in Perth was picking up this flight's information. Now, not at the time. No one thought at the time to get this, but in retrospect, they knew they had that information. So that's how we know this. So the handshake continued for more than 7 hours. So this is quite unusual, and this is what's opened up in a mass of theories and confusion, is because that plane was in the sky for 7 hours.
Acting the bollocks, wasn't it? Seriously, like, it actually was. It was performing all sorts of bizarre movements, wasn't it? Like, at one stage, right, so after the vanishing act, as Ian was talking about with the comms, she turned 30 degrees right, but 2 minutes later spun 180 degrees back towards Malaysia. I think, what the fuck's going on here? And continued in that direction for hours. And like, they were even thinking, like, why the fuck would it be going towards like dangerous, like the dangerous Indian Ocean as well? Like, so, like if the comms went out, fair enough, like you're kind of flying blind, but like just fucking bizarre stuff. So it was flying for 4 hours before allegedly crashing into the ocean at approx 9:15 a.m. You're awake at this stage, I say. What are we doing? 7 hours after the disappearance, though, was Iano saying. But this is where we're going to get into it. There's been about 150 million spent on this investigation. It's actually the most expensive investigation, like, into aviation kind of, I suppose, like incidents as ever, like. Yeah. So look, at this stage, you probably know she's still lost. We're gonna make our way into it, right? But we talk a bit about the passengers and all the pilots, now, maybe just to kind of preface where we're going with this.
True enough. On board said aircraft was 227 passengers and 12 crew, 2 of which were the pilots, 10 of which were cabin crew. The 227 passengers, among them were 19 distinguished Chinese calligraphers, Gary. Can you believe?
Mate.
Isn't it mad when you go search for that info and then so they throw... Yeah, by the way, that's the only significant thing we want to mention here. Forget all your families. There was 19 calligraphers.
When I was reading that, I was stitched as well. I love that, like, 19 distinguished calligraphers. It's like, what? I have deadly writing. Am I a distinguished calligrapher? When I was in 6th class, no word of a lie, lads. When I was in 6th class, I won best calligrapher in the year, yeah.
You did not?
I swear I had to write out on the vein the fucking national anthem, yeah, in attached writing with a fountain pen, yeah. And it was so good they actually put it up.
Did they make it the TG car?
Mate, they actually put it up outside the class, right? And I was the talk of the school. I was for a month. Everyone was like, "Do you see Gary's writing, boys? It's unreal, it is."
Did they really say
that? But in fairness, when I won,
the teacher, was it?
No, when I won, there was actually a bit of backlash, man. Right? There was actually a bit of backlash because there's a fella in my class with deadly writing as well. I actually would argue he'd be better writing than me, if I'm being honest. Yeah, right. So he should have won. So I don't know what was going on. I think the cunt won a Yoda t-shirt or something. They raffled the weekend before or the Friday before, and so they're thinking, look, he already is at the getting something. So we'll give Gary the calligraphy competition. But they put it up and like he was pulling, he was like, but everyone's like, just see Gary's writing, boys. But sorry, mate, go on. And wasn't there a fella from like a Netflix special on as well, some martial artist? Hear about this?
Yeah, I did hear about this actually.
He was so there was this martial artist basically on board, lads, right? And he was also like an actor as well, and he was flying to Beijing to actually take part in like a Netflix special. Like, it's not mad, like for some series he was in. So he was probably the most prolific person to kick the bucket, like, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And but sorry, mate, come on, yeah. The rest.
No, just again, I think you're covering all bases here, but in terms of like the detail, look, there was citizens from I think a total of 13 different countries on board. But it is just mad when they like highlight different like people. I think it's because like if there was one calligrapher, would they have left it out? I don't know. But like just there was 19, like you have to say that. Yeah. And even like there was like 20 staff going from like from an American company, Freescale Semiconductor.
Shout out Freescale.
Shout out.
Yeah. Always have a good Christmas party this year, boys. Alright.
And even a 23-month-old baby, sadly.
Fuck, I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually very sad.
Jesus.
But here, you know, look, when something happens, people are always going to want to fill the gaps, you know, with conspiracies. But I heard things that I thought were true for years, and when I looked into them, they weren't true. Like what? Did you hear about this? That there was 4 Navy SEALs who killed, you know, SEAL Team 6 that killed Osama bin Laden?
Sorry, I thought you meant SEALs, like... that were Navy.
Actually, SEALs. Shamu.
How the SEALs on
Shamu and friends.
Painted Navy.
Oh my god.
But sorry, go on.
SEAL Team 6 was apparently 4 soldiers, operatives from SEAL Team 6 that killed bin Laden. Apparently, there's a theory out there that they're all dead now.
No.
Did you ever hear that?
I didn't know that.
I don't mean to be making a sharp left in here, but honestly, God, this is actually something that'd
be a good show actually for the Nell to peak.
To look into, but they won't release the names. So you have people just saying that this is happening.
Jesus. Here, do you know, you've actually just sparked me there. I actually think something on bin Laden and all that, or something like that would be decent, wouldn't it? We already did 9/11, so why not?
Yeah,
but,
look into it.
Yeah, 100%. But look, to get in somebody... Look, the sky's the limit, basically, on the fucking... Pardon the pun.
Don't dovetail here now.
Yeah, on these conspiracy theories, but... We're going to go through the 3 main ones. So these are the ones that everyone pretty much talks about. So look, numero uno, I think, is in my eyes the front runner, right? Apparently there was no left phalange, right? There was something wrong with the left phalange on MH370. For all the Friends fans out there, all the millennials listening to this are in a fucking head spin right now. They're like, what? Yeah, no, actually, sorry. If anything, Friends on Netflix now, so they're all watching it. That was actually a fucking gas scene in French. Remember? This plane doesn't even have a phalange.
God.
Nah, I'm only buzzing, right? But no, in all seriousness though, right? Just to preface this theory, this theory before we even get into it is there was a lot of heat on the Malaysian government, wasn't there, when it came to the recovery of the plane? Like, they were under a mad scrutiny from like the families and even just the public eyes on them as well, to just explain what had happened to this plane and where the fuck it is, because it literally vanished off the face of the earth.
Yeah, the first 72 hours are mad. I think an hour and a half after it was meant to arrive in Beijing, as we know.
I thought you were gonna say Shannon there.
Baldon Airfield. And an hour and a half in, they still had delayed up on the screen. And it was actually the Prime Minister gave the order for Malaysian Airlines to notify the people over the intercom in the airport that the plane is missing.
Go away. I didn't even know that. That's madness.
Yeah. And it was an hour and a half in, and they acted very quickly, obviously taking the intel based on like both Vietnamese and Malaysian air traffic control. Mm-hmm. They had a location, and that location was, well, we tracked its location. It turned 30 degrees to the right, as Gary said, and then 80 degrees back. So they knew then that it was over the Gulf of Thailand. Mm-hmm. So then for the next 2 days, they searched there. Abbott, who was the Australian Prime Minister at the time, called up the Malaysian Prime Minister and said, let us help. There's obviously Australian nationals on that plane as well. We want to help in the search. They helped in the search. Would you believe now, here's where we get into our first conspiracy, which is the government cover-up. Mm-hmm. The Malaysian government, right, said we're searching in there for 2 days. What is 72 hours? 3 days. Mm-hmm. 3 days. 3 days after the crash, the Malaysian military came forward with intel that got released into media, which has said that we have more sophisticated radar technology than that's what, and we followed it for 3 hours out into the South Indian Ocean. Now, why they waited 3 days to say that, do you know why?
Why?
Is because they thought that neighbouring countries would get hostile because they had that level of technology and they didn't want to reveal that. Now, that was the official story. Mm-hmm. But why would a nation's own military conceal information to their own national airline in their own country? I do not know. But it does allude to kind of what we're going to go on to now, which is obviously the government's cover-up. So 72-hour delay. In that time, there was hundreds of ships, amassed in the Gulf of Thailand. Absolutely look for nothing. And in that time, they found like crude oil. They found debris, all of which they thought the crude oil was
from the plane.
From the plane.
Yeah.
But they very quickly discovered it was from a leaking ship. So there was false alarms and red flags that weren't leading them anywhere. 72 hours later, they head south to the Indian Ocean. They left in a search area, which was 118,000 square miles. So just to give you kind of some perspective on that, that's the Ireland. That's like drawing a circle around Ireland and the UK.
Jesus Christ! Like, imagine having to search a grid of that fucking size, like, for anything. Like,
I'm perplexed.
What the
Where
fuck,
would you
like?
start? Like, yeah. Honestly, God. It's all dark. It's all dark anyway. Then you're heading south to a search area that's more than 3 million square miles. So you're talking about bigger than the size of the US, right?
Jesus.
So
why would have just left it?
One of the first things that the Malaysian government done was they availed of a technology called the 21 Bluefin submersible. Mm-hmm. And that's like a torpedo-shaped robot submarine that goes down and scans the ocean floor. But the problem you have with the Indian Ocean floor is it's at parts 46 kilometers deep and has its own mountain peaks, mountain ranges, and fault lines. So you have experts getting back thousands of images over the next few months. And they're just scanning and looking by eye, trying to find in all these mountain peaks and odd shapes and ranges. Nothing came back. Inconclusive. However, I think it was in fact you who told me about this, about the pieces being found.
Yeah, no, man, I told you about that. Yeah, no, in all seriousness though, this is when the kind of more conspiracy side of it kind of kicks in a bit. So yeah, after a while, some very fucking sus thing starts happening, right? In June 2015, in a little location called Réunion Island, which is 200 miles off Madagascar. Can't forget that, can I, Ian? Ian at me there for the old figures. Having the atlas out, man, that's 200 miles off Madagascar there, bro. Don't care.
At least you done my voice a bit better than this time.
Yeah, Ian goes mad about how he does.
How are you doing my voice?
You might.
I'm not helping myself, by the way, by saying how are you doing my voice. But I'm not helping
when
myself.
Ian was in Canada, literally he'd be listening to podcasts because he lived there for the last couple of years, and he'd be like, "Man, I have a bone to pick with you." I was like, "What is it?" The way you do my voice in the podcast wrecks me head because I'll be doing my voice and be like, and I'll be chatting to mate Ian, and he'd be like, "What you mean?"
That's literally how it was. It was
like,
wrecking me head. I was like, I know I'm 20% nasal, but like, you know, don't fucking do that.
Literally making out to be the biggest bozo ever. Like when I'm doing your impression, like. But
anyway, let's circle back to
sorry, back boys. So yeah, the following year, so the first piece washes up right in Reunion Island. The following year, the second piece floats up in a place called Pembe, which is 1,200 miles off Malaysia, and then the following year in Madagascar, 4,000 miles off Malaysia. Now, so this is interesting. Gives you a debris radius. Fun fact, which is the size of Russia.
In case this comes up in a trivia quiz.
You're at the MH370 official pub quiz, right? Down the Fort Flanagan there, right? You need to know all this, lads. Do you know what I mean? But all pieces were quote unquote confirmed to be from MH370 through their serial numbers. However, one of the leading theories is that the pieces were planted there. Explanation to follow, right? As I would say, right? I'll give you right. So for one, right, all the pieces that washed up were from the wing, right. So the right flaperon was discovered in Reunion Island. The right wing flap was discovered in Pemba Island, and a part of the right wing exterior was discovered in Madagascar. Coincidental, right?
I think
isn't it? I think not. I don't think so either, man. To be honest with you, all three of the pieces belong to the same part of the plane, which is the right wing. Now, we need to talk about this little event.
Insurance claim.
The insurance claim that went down in 2012. Where do we even begin with this scene? I'll take us
2 years prior to said accident, that same flight, Malaysia 370, was actually in a bit of a car crash. With a bit of a crash in Shanghai. It bumped into like a Chinese Airways flight, and the right wing, although Boeing went on to say it was subsequently minor damage, and it was under repair for 2 months, the right wing was absolutely smashed to bits, and the first 6 feet of the wing were
there was carnage on the runway. Did you hear about that? There was carnage on the runway. The two drivers were getting out on the runway screaming their head off each other. They were like, "You bumped into me. Jackie, get back in the plane. I'm handling it. Now, get back. Don't walk away from you. Give me your fucking details. This is all on you, pal. We didn't do anything."
Checking this, exchanging information. I'm not paying for that.
Coke Devil said it was literally the most expensive insurance claim they've ever received.
It's not women. Get his information. Oh man!
Oh,
stuff. Anyway,
look, no one is injured though. In fairness, with this little collision, if you could even call it that. But the right wing, as Iano was saying, was in a jock. Like it was actually lodged into the Chinese plane. There was pictures of it. There was pictures of the right wing, like up to 6 feet apparently of the right wing missing. And it was like lodged in this other little Chinese Eastern Airlines plane, which is madness. Like, but anyway, on the brass tacks, right? Because this is where we're going next, right? So when planes have any kind of like decommissioned parts, like either the entire plane or a wing or an engine or whatever, it goes to a place which is like kind of like a boneyard, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? These little scrapyards specifically for aircraft. And so in this case, the wing was actually taken off, obviously, because half it was stuck inside the bleeding noggin of that other plane, was taken off and brought to this little boneyard, and it was completely replaced, right? So this is what makes this whole thing sussy, because the serial numbers were from the wing that was with
the old wing.
The old wing that was in the boneyard. Do you know what I mean? How fucking insane is that? Like, do you know what I mean? Now, I know what you're thinking, like, this is fucking mad. Like, for one, like, if they were planted there, like, the obstacles alone that would need it to be traversed, like, do you know what I mean? To do that, you need to go to the boneyard, whip the wing out and, like, plant it. Like, put it in a current, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? Put it in a current that's going to bring it to all these different locations. But look, it's not like the Malaysian government don't have just cause, do you know what I mean? Because as I said earlier, they were under serious fucking serious scrutiny and serious pressure to come up with some explanation as to what happened, right? But regardless of that, there's a bit of evidence to support these wacky claims, isn't there?
There is, of course.
Exhibit A, mate. Barnacles. And no, I'm not just a fucking character of SpongeBob here, right? Barnacles are what What really kind of blows the kind of the hatch off this,
Blows
you know what I
the
mean?
lid off it,
Yeah,
yeah.
blows the lid off this, boys.
Blows
yeah.
the emergency door off. I was trying to look for a good pun,
Yeah.
visual pun,
I'm
but
sure there'll
anyway,
be a
just
few
forget
puns
it.
throughout this though, yeah. But look, right, so barnacles, what are barnacles again? They're like little kind of growths, aren't they? Little fungi or something.
Imagine
fungi.
like oversized fungi, but like
Yeah.
small coral
Yeah.
that grows
on
on
shit
it
like
grows
that.
on metal, it grows on wood, it grows on everything.
Like once it's just exposed to the ocean environment, like.
To the ocean environment, but it can only grow between 18 and 25 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. So this is what was interesting about these little pieces that were floating up, right? So looking at the debris, right, the barnacles covered only the top, the bottom, and the side. This only happens, right, if the pieces are completely submerged while in the ocean, right? But when they tested the pieces that were recovered, they floated, right?
That was the big giveaway.
Yeah, exactly. They floated. So like in that circumstance, like the barnacle growth, I suppose, would be like it wouldn't. It would.
One-sided.
Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't completely cover it like in this thing, right? So according to marine biologists, barnacles and marine fouling only happen when there's consistent submersion, right? So if the pieces floated, then they wouldn't receive like equal wetting. Do you know what I mean? The barnacles would have grown in like not in the way they did. Like, but anyway, the rabbit hole goes deeper again, right? Chemical tests also determined that the barnacles grew in temperatures much cooler than the water found in and around where they were allegedly found, like, which is nuts, isn't it?
Yeah,
But like,
and that's why France disassociated from the fines, didn't it?
yeah, well, like this is something that kind of interests me. Like going back, I know we're kind of putting a lot of stick on the Malaysian government, right? But again, they were under serious pressure from like the grieving families and stuff. And they were protesting daily. Like, remember we were looking at the clips earlier, you know, like there was uproar, like. And we might throw a clip in now. We have of the families kicking off.
We're witnessing a street protest in Beijing. These people are family members of those aboard the missing Malaysian airplane. A few minutes ago, they left the hotel where they've been staying for the past 2 weeks, armed with T-shirts saying "Pray for MH370" and banners saying "We want the truth from Malaysia." They tried to board buses to take them to the Malaysian embassy, but those buses were stopped by the Chinese police. They broke through those police lines, and they're now simply marching through the streets of Beijing to get to the Malaysian embassy to demand the answers that they say they deserve.
Troublemakers. Nah, money messing, right? But like, you know, for example, right, the Malaysian government, right, this is what sussy to me. They were very, very eager to kind of like
Troublemakers.
brush this
Poor
under the
families,
carpet.
like.
Brush this under the carpet, right? Like in a press conference, right? So when these pieces washed up, right, the Malaysian government were like, yeah, no, these pieces are 100% unequivocally, like, absolutely from MH370, right? No, from a MH370, right? But the French government came out and they were like, well, no, there's still very much a lot to kind of process there now. You know, we can't say for absolute certainty that these parts are definitely from a MH370. Like, there's like very strong conjectures was the exact quote they used, and further testing was needed to verify if it was from the plane. But again, going back to the Malaysian government, they were like, no, 10 million % that's the plane. Because the families are on a fucking mad one. So, like, you know, to me, it doesn't seem completely out of, like, the equation that they'd be looking to push, like, a narrative like this, do you know what I mean? But anyway, on to the next kind of part of this crazy tale, right? What happens then, you know? 6 more pieces show up, found by French officials on Madagascar, right? And the pieces end up getting held in Madagascar custody, right? The Malaysian government hit the roof. They're like, don't let anyone touch them fucking parts until we get down there. Yeah, we're not messing.
Like that
Don't let anyone near those fucking pieces till we get our boy down there, right? So they send a bloke down to Madagascar by the name of Zahid Rossi, yeah? Your Palino, right? So Zahid Rossi was the honorary consul of Malaysia, right? And he was like a seasoned diplomat, particularly like in Madagascan diplomacy. Like, he spent the last 4 years of his career kind of tightening up the relationship between Malaysia and Madagascar. Apparently there was ructions, there was uproar between them. He came in and earned it. But so he touches down anyway in Madagascar, rents a little jammer from Hertz, right? Arranges to pick up the pieces in the AM. But as you'd expect, the story doesn't go that way, does it? You know, no way, Jose. The chap, right, is, as I said, he arranges to pick up the piece at 11. I'd love to know what he did in his final night.
Be bullets.
Yeah, he's gonna be bullets, bro. The chap probably went for a lovely steak, enjoyed himself. At 11 p.m, the poor chap has probably gone back to his hotel. Doesn't the chap get absolutely riddled out of it? Gets absolutely slaughtered. His little rental car was unrecognisable, right? And it got mowed down with artillery fire, right? And that's all she wrote for young fucking Ross. It was game over. The chap was brown bread. No one knows who the fuck the assailant was.
He was just going to collect the gear.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this is the night before. Like, and but it's heavily speculated. Look, his demise was the result of these poxy playing pieces. To be honest with you,
yeah.
Because think about it, like that was his sole purpose. Like poor Rossett, man. The chap is just out in his little rental car, driving back to his hotel. There's no need for it. Like, for him to be just driving along and then like, you know,
there's no answer.
Whatever
for that.
About like just to get clipped. Like a little bike, like driving up beside you in traffic, like a Biggie Smalls job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Clipped and off again. Artillery fire, like that's so over the top, man. Like
the car went with that as well. Like.
You might as well send like military jets in to get him. Like, do you know what I mean? Actually, fucked it is. Well, look, let's take stock for a second, mate. What's going on, right? We've chatted about the wing, man. How the serial numbers were off the wing that had been replaced and was in the bone. Yeah. And now we're talking with your man getting done in, like. This is fucking outrageous. Like, what's going on? Like, if this was simple as just a plane going whistling, crashing into the ocean, that'd be that. Do you know what I mean? Why is there so much, like, mystery, like, smoke and mirrors surrounding this whole thing? It's bananas, like. But anyway, that takes us on nicely to numero dos in this conspiracy extravaganza, right? So we'll chat about a little bit, I suppose, about the official story about the comms going on, because that's what the kind of narrative they seem to be pushing a bit. And the exact reason for the comms failure is still widely debated, right? But airline experts have claimed there's only really a couple of ways that these things happen, right? One is major electrical fires, right? Some facts, though, according to Flight Safety Authority, right? The majority of electrical fires are caused by wire malfunctions, right? Like a wire like overheating or like sparking or something like that. Mate, I don't know about you, but I was thinking about my AirPods when I read that. I was like, my AirPod wires go a bit dodgy sometimes. Like, do you know what I mean? So if you were telling me my safety inside an aircraft is down to a wire, do you know what I mean? Like, what? I couldn't get over it. I was like, no, surely, like, do you know what I mean? A wire overheating, like, do you know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know.
Isn't there some staggering statistic about that? Like, one in every
3
16?
flights. 3
one
flights
in every
a day.
3.
Swear to God, 3 flights a day, right? This is it. I have the stats for you here, mate. Statistics, right? 3 flights a day experience in-flight smoke problems around the world. What? Like, I don't fancy me chances, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know how many flights there are a day, but 3 is bad enough. Like, look. Apparently, I was reading a bit into it, and apparently most of them are just extinguished in seconds by the crew, and passengers never really know. Like, thank fuck, but it's still a major issue apparently for airlines around the world. I don't have any pilots listening to this, but tune in, lads. Let us know, or fucking DM us or something, because I'm paranoid me nut. Like, you know what I mean? After that, But yeah, look, airline experts do claim that this will be a potential reason, right? Comm systems could go down, well, like within a few minutes, like, and this could potentially explain the sudden 180-degree turn that young 370 did. However, this theory would not explain why the plane made a second turn, right? Last thing they'd want to be doing, surely, would be flying over open water with no comms, right? Also, the final transmission, as you pointed out earlier, they were in fantastic form. Do you know what I mean? Like when they were chatting away to like fucking HQ, like literally, like there was no signs that anything was wrong. Like, do you know what I mean? It was grand. And like, surely, because if there was any sign of fucking faulty wiring or whatever, or smoke inside the cockpit, like they'd be ringing back HQ, like going like, fuck me, it's scorching in here, boys. You mean any extinguishers around there? Like, I mean, like they were in fantastic form. So that's what's so sussy about the whole thing, like, because, you know what I mean, there would be evidence that, you know, all was not fucking well, you know, on 370, like. And again, it happened literally just when they were switching over to the Vietnamese.
Gosh, statistically, you are more likely to be struck by lightning than to experience an issue in a Boeing 777.
No, grand, man. I wouldn't fancy me chances, man, after this.
What?
Do you know?
Were you serious?
I swear to God, the older I've gotten, the more afraid I am of flying. I don't know what it is like.
Yeah, it's the reverse for me, though.
Yeah, man, I've been on, like, when I was born, man, I was like fucking 6 months or something on me first plane going to Blackpool, right, for the Stags. No, seriously though, like, I remember, like, I've just been on planes like fuck since I was younger, but the older I've gotten, the more
celebrity
paranoid I
life,
am. Like, yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah.
I'm just more paranoid these days about being on flights. Like, I think the last plane I was on, obviously, like, pre-Rona, like, probably I think it was Amsterdam or something. I was actually a nervous wreck going over there. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But this has led experts to consider some other ways some other reason, that the craft could have lost all comm systems in under 10 minutes, right? And the only other way that this could happen is if someone sabotaged the plane and removed the circuit breaker on board, right? Now, on a Boeing, some facts here, right? On a Boeing 777, it's located above the pilot's mallet, right? Pilots are instructed, though, never to touch it unless it's an absolute emergency, like, fucking, like, proper last resort type thing, right? Unless it keeps like tripping or something like that. It's not the story, you know, isn't it? Like if it's like tripping non-stop.
Electrical fault,
yeah, and they even have to alert like air traffic control apparently to say, listen, this is what we're doing and why. And yeah, so there was none of that chat. But after the plane went missing, they looked into that backstories of some of the pilots. You know, this is your territory.
I think this is where we step into conspiracy number 20.
Number 20, we love it. Okay. Vent your own language, bro.
So, heading would be probably suicide by the pilot. Now, I suppose, let's just jump back in there. Pilot Zahari Ahmad Shah was 56-year-old, had flown more than 56,000 miles and been a
veteran,
veteran of the game.
No, veteran, man. Say it with me, veteran. Yeah, that's how Stubbs say.
Veteran.
Yeah, veteran. VECHRIN, veteran.
Oh my god. Yeah, so Zahari was would you believe it or not, he has his own YouTube channel and there's still videos up there you can check out. Mate, isn't this mad? There's so many mad things that surround this that we're going to touch on now in a sec. But like, even one of the things, like the pilot had his own YouTube channel about him showing people his flight simulator at home.
That's actually mad. I didn't know
and
that.
It's still up there.
Yeah.
So you just Google Zahari Ahmad Shah. I don't know how you spell Shah. Yeah. Zahari Ahmad, even just Malaysian pilot YouTube channel, and you'll see his YouTube channel there. But yeah, so look, there was things that were happening and surrounding this man's life in the days leading up to him. Case in point, 3 days minus flight, his wife and 2 kids leave him from the house, right? They left him, yeah. 2 days before the flight, his mistress, who was 30 years younger than him, dumped him by WhatsApp.
He was ripping his wife off and
the whole time, yeah.
Go away, madness.
She probably knew, like, that's probably was all over. Like, I'm sure it wasn't.
She
over,
probably
like,
took the plane down. Fucking what's the crime of passion?
But and then one day before that, a cousin of his who was involved in a political party, who he was heavily involved in and was rumored to be involved in after his career in piloting, got convicted of sodomy.
What's that, like arse rape, isn't it? Isn't it? I think it is. I don't mean that. You know that.
You're up in the lingo in your game. No,
you were in prison for years, you know.
I changed my name legally. You're not allowed to mention that. But, yeah. So we're the what they're saying is, okay, look, if you Google it, the media, especially in Malaysia, they established the motive very early when they heard about these man's like troubled times in the days leading up to it and what ensued. They said, oh, this is a guy who's lost it. But there's a couple of other strange things that happened. Now, would you believe when they were consulting experts, they did not consult pilots?
Why?
Would you believe? Just anti-terrorism, just psychologists, just air crash investigation, but they did not consult pilots. We'll get onto that later. But one of the things the pilots was saying was that he done something very unusual, because you know the way the Malaysian military tracked the flight out over the Indian Ocean for 7 hours.
Yeah,
said he done something very unusual. Zahari Ahmad was born in Pan Am, and what he done was when he took that last 180-degree turn, and then he took another turn out the Indian Ocean, that 180-degree turn brought him straight over his hometown of Pan Am. And from there, would you believe, before taking a sharp left out into the Indian Ocean and flying to, well, what we assume was their obliteration, he done what was called the tip of the wing. And apparently pilots were explaining this, particularly not in commercial jets, but in more private jets and like military jets. A tip of the wing is one of those kind of like, call it like a gesture in the air, like a tip of the hat to say farewell. So you fly on your side 90 degrees for a moment. And that's what, when he took a sharp left to go out into the Indian Ocean, before doing that, he done a tip of the wing, leveled, and then done a sharp left out into the Indian Ocean. Some people were saying that was a big tell, because that was a pilot, that was a very like
swan song,
cultured pilot. tip of the hat.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah.
370s out here. Look. So, so you laugh. The other thing is to look at is hypoxia. Hypoxia, you know what hypoxia is?
No, it sounds like it's a disease, isn't it?
No, it actually is the opposite. It's supposed to be quite pleasant. As described by professionals, astronauts have to go through this training as well. Right. Hypoxia is when the altitude increases so much or you're depressurized in the cabin that oxygen no longer goes to the brain. And when that happens, you go unconscious, but it's meant to be quite a pleasant experience. You have that 24/7, man, don't you? A lack of feed to the brain there. So what the Malaysian military noticed was that he climbed 8,000 feet in 15 seconds. And what they believe he done there was he by depressurized the cabin. Depressurized the cabin, climbed 9,000 feet, and knocked everyone out unconscious. But do you know that the oxygen masks fall? When the cabin is depressurized, the oxygen masks fall. When that happens, each mask gets 12 minutes of oxygen. That's it. Everyone. But there's extra oxygen in the cockpit for the pilot.
Right.
But what happens is if you climb at that altitude that rapidly while depressurizing the cabin, people go unconscious before getting the chance to put the masks on.
No.
So that's called a ghost flight.
Fuck off.
Yeah, when there's like literally 200 dead souls in the back.
No.
And you're just riding solo front.
That's fucked me.
Oh, I know, isn't it mad?
How often has that happened in history? Like that doesn't happen surely, like on like commercial planes. Like I mean, like
none that we know of.
Yeah.
Like I mean,
that's like I don't know.
That's quite amazing. Like
yeah.
But there's a couple of things that led to that suggestion. In order for that to happen, as you alluded to earlier, they had to have pulled the circuit breaker out, right, to stop a fire. And if there was a fire in the cabin, they would have had to depressurize the cabin to put the fire out, meaning there was no longer oxygen and people would have suffocated. But again, like that, they wouldn't have known anything about it. Now, what they believe will happen was, we go back earlier, remember the handshakes? The satellite picking up the signal once every hour. The flight flew at 39,000 kilometers in the first hour, but they don't know what happened after that because the Malaysian military lost it after that. But it was traveling 600 miles per hour each hour for 7 hours before it lost fuel and went. So it lost fuel after 8.5 hours of flying for what was meant to be a 5 hour, 45-minute journey. So there was two pilots that didn't know each other, but by putting their theory out there online, they met each other and they came up with the same theory, but by different conclusions. They reckon they know where the plane is.
Oh, fuck off.
Isn't this mad? And they were never consulted. Enter Byron Bailey.
Right.
He's a pilot, experienced pilot, commercial jet for Emirates. The other one is Mike Keane, who's also experienced pilot for British Airways. No, sadly enough.
Heard Keane, bro. I was like...
But both of them have simulators at home.
Yeah.
So Mike Keane is a chief pilot for British Airways. Byron Bailey is just an experienced commercial pilot for Emirates. Both have Boeing 777 simulators at home. And they ran through on their system what might have happened.
Right.
And they think a couple of things happen. See, at 39,000 feet, if you run out of fuel and fall, that's called a death dive.
Right.
And what happens is that you go down in a spiral and pieces come off the plane and you would hit the water at 1,000 kilometers an hour, right? Meaning the plane will break into a million pieces. And pieces would have been found everywhere by now.
Yeah.
But what they say happened was, and their theory is this, when they ran through the model based on the fuel, right, and based on the weather conditions, and the weight of the aircraft, because as you know, the Malaysian government released the itinerary, that they were able to run through that model on their simulators. And what they found was that, no, if there's no pieces, it means he landed. And what they mean by landed is that he cruised at a low altitude before running out of fuel, then glided
into
to a
the
land,
sea,
and basically put himself and everyone else in a tomb going under. That's why there's no pieces. Because it wouldn't break up from a low altitude glide. But what he said was that he's about 120 kilometers south of the lowest search point, and they should have checked there. But because they never checked this model or this theory, they never went by that. Now, He gave coordinates. He said, check latitude 3910, southeast 8818. He said, this is your man Byron Bailey. He's on like the news and his own YouTube saying this. I'll put my house on it. It's around there. The plane is around there. He said, yeah. He said, because if it was anything else, we'd have evidence.
Interesting. There's a few people like that even have, like I was saying to you beforehand, like there's a chap who thinks he knows roughly where it is because he's at the putting a lot of trackers on sharks. I was telling you.
God. Please go on. What is this?
So this is what his whole thing is, right? So he's at the putting a fuckload of bleeding trackers on sharks, and like the way sharks, like I guess, submerge and re-emerge, they like in that part of the ocean, they had only raised a certain altitude to get. Can you even use the term altitude on top of the sea? Yeah. But the way they come back up, they only come back up if there was something in their way, apparently, when they're down that deep. And they reckon the way they keep going up is because there's like something there, like an obstacle, i.e. like a plane. Do you know what I mean?
No way.
Yeah, that sounds boss.
That's freaky though.
I was just reading about it the other day and I was just like, oh, you know, maybe he's looking to get into the sun. Do you know what I mean? The Herald for the weekend. I know where 370 is. Me sharks are telling me.
Me sharks are telling me.
Sorry, mate. Go on, yeah.
No, I mean, look, insofar as that theory, that's what it. Now, there's a third and final theory. Mm-hmm. Enter Dr. Sally Leavesley.
Welcome, Sally.
Welcome, Sally. So obviously the boys in Malaysia, who the Prime Minister Hussein was like, look, we don't know where this is. Give Store Street Garda Station out there. Get Sally there. Yeah. So they got Sally on the line anyway, and they're like, Sally, look, we need to have a yap with you. Sally's the anti-terrorism expert for the actual the UK, actually, not Store Street Garda Station anymore. Like she was there. She started out there. Yeah. Dr. Sally Leavesley is an anti-terrorism expert and has helped solve many issue and what she believes happened. And she cannot be, she's on record as saying, you will not convince me of otherwise. This was a cyber hijack.
Go away.
And a cyber...
You about that garden, Sally. Throwing fucking incendiary
allegations
theories.
like that.
Allegations out that. That's heavy, that
Don't
is,
back that up.
Yeah. A cyber hijacking, you know, goes into that now, will you?
Did you know Honeywell?
Yeah, no, go on.
Honeywell work with Boeing to create the software for the airplanes, for the aircraft. But it's believed, but it's actually illegal in most countries. But they believe that Honeywell created a software with Boeing in 2006, which means that if there was a terrorist attack, Boeing would know about it and they'd be able to remotely pilot the plane and land it.
Go away.
Even with the terrorists trying to manually do it, they can override it from remote location.
Remotely hijacking like planes and all.
Vehicles, aircraft.
That's mad. I never knew about that. Like, yeah, like
100%.
Could anything be remotely hijacked? Like,
what do you mean?
Like a Luas or something like.
I don't know if terrorists have much interest in that.
On a Luas and the thing gets taken over
remotely.
Yeah.
Get the green line.
Yeah, sorry. This is my stop. Let us off. Sorry, driver.
Because that's obviously their natural first interest. Yeah. What do we do? Get the red line at 6 p.m. on a Monday. Like.
Man, and Luas getting remotely hijacked. It's killing me.
Oh my god. But yeah, Dr. Sally Leavesley said she collected evidence from 26 different countries. Yeah. And the reports that were shared, some of which have to remain confidential. She said that my mind will not be changed. This was a cyber hijacking and by the US government.
She said, that garden, Sally.
Bear with your daisy. You're not saying that, are you?
Sally's off a fucking tit. She is throwing shit like that out, and she wagging that yokas.
Yeah.
Oh,
so now what other people actually, the independent researchers done on this? So you know what the victims' families got shared the manifesto of the cargo,
right? And
they changed it 3 times. The first they said there was 2,500 kilograms of lithium-ion batteries.
Why, like?
Who the fuck goes, can we just check in 2.5?
The calligraphers. Them 19 calligraphers checking in about 200 pounds of batteries.
It was 4,000 pounds.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, 2,500 kilos, yeah. And
they're electric fountain pens.
Yeah, my HP laptop. I just want a few spares. Like, I mean, what would you be doing with that? But what they noticed is they changed the name of that. Then they call it radio accessories and chargers.
Right.
And people don't understand what this is. And like a lot of rich families have got like lawyers after them and to explain what it is, and they're not answering.
Right.
But what Sally Leavesley was saying is that there was cargo on board that plane that was meant to be government to government exchange of contraband or cargo, right? Military or something of interest to other governments around the world, right? But the way to transport it was through a red-eye flight on a commercial jet, which no one would have noticed. But she reckons the US knew about it and cyber hijacked the plane. So what she reckons happened was that's why the steers happened. That's why the systems got knocked offline. That's why they went where they went and they flew over the Indian Ocean. But you're saying flew over the Indian Ocean to where? Exactly where is an island called Diego Garcia. Now, Diego Garcia was occupied by the US military in 1971. They just invaded the island, kicked everyone off the island, killed anyone who refused.
Really?
Yeah. And since that time, no photographer, journalist, or civilian who was not military has been allowed to enter that island.
That's fucked, man. So this island is completely dedicated to military activity, yeah?
Yeah, if Google,
US,
you can literally Google it, Google image it, Google Maps it. Diego Garcia, Indian Ocean. And they use that as like a military stop-off, right? 1971. Now, there's a neighbouring island called Kudu Huvadu, if you can remember that.
Right. Kuna Matata.
Yeah, man. So Simba and the boys are watching this flight. No, there was two journalists went there a couple of months later, right? So Farah Ahmad and Ahmad Naif, right, were two journalists that went to Kudu Huvadu and interviewed the residents, and they said, yeah, in the early hours of the morning while it was still bright, we noticed a low-flying aircraft. Now, that's a neighbouring island to Diego Garcia, and they said it was too low. It was too low to be a normal jet, but it was flying very low and was flying south towards Diego Garcia. And for that, the journalist said, can you describe the plane? You wouldn't guess what plane they described.
Air Ireland.
The boys are back. The insurance details of it.
The Irish pilots lost in the middle of nowhere outside Diego Garcia. Shite! Bollocks! I knew we missed that turn. For fuck's sake. Declan, don't fucking start me now, I'm on you.
I'm not paying the E-flow on that.
In 200 metres, turn right.
I know you turned this fucking thing off. All they could have done us. The Google Maps going 90.
Two boys in a propeller over the Indian Ocean, like meant to land in what, the Isle of Wight, and the boat for what?
This whole concept of Irish pilots lost in the middle of fucking that Diego Island. Oh, stop, man. That's outrageously funny.
Gosh, crack. But anyway, now enter, guys. This is where I want to blow your minds away. Enter 64-year-old retired amateur, right, air crash investigationist Peter McMahon. Peter McMahon is a resident of Perth in Australia.
I would say walking down there, something there.
Do you know he spent for 4 years, right? In 2018, he went through pixel by pixel of Google Earth looking for irregularities in the ocean to see if he could see it.
What did he find?
He thinks he found the jet.
Come on.
And if, honest to God, listeners out there, even the Malaysians who are listening to this podcast, if you Google yourself...
Because a thriving Malaysian listener.
You have a huge following. I saw your following. The Malaysians are up there near the top. But he took a screenshot of what was an irregularity and what he thought looked like an ocean. And what he said was that his screenshots were messed with. Now, they are. Like, if you check Peter McMahon, a screenshot of M370, yeah? MH370. There's a lot of websites that like deliberately fuck with it, like they deliberately Photoshop in a stupid like
the
plane.
scabbiest looking plane
like,
ever.
Exactly, yeah, to try debunk him. But what he said was that no, I had more images that are taken down, and every time he reposts them, they're taken down. And he says the side of a plane with bullet holes in it, right? And he said it's a plane, and there's a cabin, and it's the Malaysian Air Flight, like the design. There's also but there's also like the wing, like it's in situ. But if you get to see some of the, there's some websites that are still showing it, but if you see some of the images, it's actually quite amazing. You're like, how in God's name is this airplane shape in the water, like out in the middle of nowhere, like this perfect balanced symmetrical airplane shape? So check that out as well. But yeah, Peter McMahon's screenshots of Google Maps. But do you know that Google Maps took that down? So if you go back to that location where he found that, they just put in a normal sea pattern.
Go away.
It's not even.
It's probably like madly
blotchy,
pasted in as well or something. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't even look like the sea anymore.
Exactly, blotchy. So there obviously are 3 theories there. But it is mad when you think about the hypoxia theory that he flew for 7 hours.
Yeah.
With like whatever it was, 280 people dead in the back.
Yeah.
But it is mad when the pilots talk about the location. And saying that the reason why if there was a death dive, you'd have found pieces everywhere, all over the place. But he said, but because there's no pieces, you have to assume that there was maybe a glide and a landing, and therefore if there was, you're checking the wrong location.
Yeah.
So mad as it is, now enter finally Richard Smith. Do you know who Richard Smith is?
Richie Smith now.
Richie, but Dick Smith. He's the chairman of the Aviation Association.
Right.
And he's a former like stunt pilot of the past, then turned military pilot, then turned commercial pilot, and then trained people and done many things in life. But he's saying is the reason why the searching has stopped, obviously depending on what's really happened, but what we're led to believe in the public is that because the funding was pulled. Right? The Australians can't afford it, the French can't afford it, the Malaysians can't afford it, the Chinese can't afford it. But he said 4 billion people fly a year commercially, right? Pre-COVID.
Right.
But he said if you put 10 cent extra on everybody's ticket, you'd have 400 million a year.
Oh my God.
That's more than enough to put submarines, ships, everything out in the ocean. Put 10 cents on everybody's ticket. He said because like you're flying in a pressurized tube on the edge of space. Like it's in our interest to find out where and if these things go wrong, how they go wrong, what we can learn. So it's in our interest to research it, dig it up, like find it, bring it back and learn what we can if it's in the bottom of the ocean. But they've pulled all. They've stopped to this day. They've given up searching, and the families to this day have no answer. And it's very sad when you listen to the families talk.
Yeah. Because
the families have said that they've had to go to therapy, and part of therapy is writing your own ending. Isn't that sad? Isn't it?
What the fuck?
That's very fucked up. Like.
Yeah.
But like they have to write their own ending, as to say that my daddy went to sleep and that was it. Like, and he knew nothing about the crash.
Oh, go away.
And that's what they've been left with. The Malaysian government has abandoned them. The Malaysian Airlines is not assuming any responsibility for this. Boeing has stayed in the dark about it. So it's just like it is mad. It's just one of the mad things of our time. Yeah, but it was quickly breezed over. Like,
yeah, it's nuts. Like, because everyone knows about 370, and everyone knows it just wasn't recovered. But I highly doubt the vast majority of people know the kind of mysterious events surrounding the last few years when it comes to this subject. Like, again, we just went into it all, but for me anyway, just to tail off here, right? Pardon the fun, right?
Oh my God.
This whole crack about like the serial numbers on the wing, right? And then your man getting assassinated all in Madagascar. Like, that's the maddest shit to me. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
That should be,
If this was just a typical plane going missing in the middle of the fucking Indian Ocean, that'd be that. Like, why is there so much mad shit happening? Like, assassinations, like a spy novel or something, isn't it?
It is actually, yeah.
And then, like, dodgy serials on wings and all, like, do you know what I mean?
For the very fact that the French disassociated with the find.
Yeah.
The Malaysians, before even collecting the evidence, said, we found it, we knew it was a crash. And the French said, no, we're actually going to wait on the evidence, thanks.
Yeah.
Do you know?
It's
and then like you alluded to earlier, the barnacles are...
Yeah, sorry, the barnacles are another fucking...
Totally inconsistent. Like, they're like, if it floated 4,000 miles... By the way, Pemba Islands, which is on the east of Africa, is 12,000 miles away. So that gives you a debris radius the size of Russia.
Yeah, like, that's madness, like, do you know what I mean?
So if it floated there, that means the underside that floated would have... Like, there's meant to be inconsistencies with the barnacles, but there wasn't. It was perfectly distributed all the way around.
Yeah. It's mad shit, it is. But look, lads, let us know what you thought, realistically. Like for me, I'm a bit rocked by the whole thing. Because, like, I really didn't know there was that much weirdness surrounding it. I really, like, for me, as just a typical Joe Soap here, in Ireland, I was just like, right, they never found the end of the story. But when we looked into it, we're like, Jesus Christ. But yeah, that was a nice little dive for the lads. It's been a while since we've done anything kind of, yeah.
Really?
Sorry, mate, bad choice of words. Well, who knows? I might have landed in fucking Diego Garcia Island, or the fuck that is, like, do you know what I mean? And all the passengers are now are loving life now on that little military island. But no, it's been a while since we did a fucking a little dive into like anything conspiracy. I think 9/11 was probably the last one that we did, conspiracy. So but yeah, fair play to me for joining me on this.
Happy to be back podding with you again.
Joins me on the Patreon every month if you're interested. If you have the means and the interest. We obviously do massively appreciate it. You get an extra episode a month. You can catch all the historical episodes on there as well. And above all that, it really does help myself and the lads keep the show on wheels. So if you have the interest or the means, I know it's a tough time for everyone, people are at work, etc. But if it is something you can get in on, we really do appreciate it from the bottom of our fat hearts. So on that note, we're going to leave it there, right? Gracias.